Hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm going to talk about guilty pleasures. So this is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a long time. BookTube is a place where we talk about books and we talk about what we read, but it is a place of performance. In a way, we are performing, it's performative, we're in front of a camera and we're talking about the books we read, and we're putting out an image like you do with any part of YouTube. It's even if you're not necessarily aware of it, you're putting out an image of how you want other random strangers to see you or view you as or think you are like, whatever it is. And so I think about this in terms of guilty pleasure reading, and I think about it in the context of my own life. So guilty pleasures, I think we all know what a guilty pleasure is. It is something that is, fun, delicious, yummy, whatever word you want to use, that is sort of shameful. It's something that we sort of will whisper about, saying, oh, I really like Real Housewives. I really, really like this YA series. Oh, I really like romance novels. Whatever it is, we sort of whisper it because we don't want these guilty pleasures to define us. We want people to think that we're smart and we're studious and we're academic and we're well-versed in the literary world, whatever it is. We want people to see us as very intelligent, well put together people who would never touch that sort of low-brow literature, music, whatever it is. In terms of literature, a big part of my reading life is romance novels. Not a huge part, but it is a part of my reading life. I read romance novels. I know, it's crazy. And for a long time, I was very insecure about admitting that to people because I thought if people knew that I read romance novels, they would see me as someone who was less smart or less interesting or someone who is kind of trifling and silly, whatever it is. So I never admitted to it. I just sort of kept it secret. I had this sort of dual persona happening. The other one persona was this persona that I like performed out to the universe, performed here on YouTube, performed in my real life, that I was very smart. I was very put together. I would never read romance novels. I read literary fiction. I read highbrow literary fiction. I read in the literary canon, whatever you want to say. And so I kind of sort of kept that to myself. But I had this other part of me that lived behind that performative layer that was a big fan of romantic comedies, of reality television, a big fan of romance novels, someone who frequently has read Nora Roberts books. I'm reading a Nora Roberts book right now called The Dark Witch, and it's fantastic, and I'm loving it. Now it is to say that I think that within guilty pleasure reading, they're not always perfect. They're not going to probably be the best books ever, and they're probably going to have problems, and I will always admit to whatever it is. I know with the book I'm reading right now, The Dark Witch, it's sort of very gendered. There's a lot of things that it's like, wow, the genders here are very, very locked in place, and this idea of femininity and masculinity are very locked in place, and I'm very well aware of this fact. I think it's important to discuss that when you're talking about these books. But at the same time, it's okay to enjoy them. It's okay to consume them if they're relatively harmless. Of course, this idea, that's a whole nother topic, but this idea of harmless is dependent on every person, although there are some things that are just harmful across the board. I think we can all agree. But anyway, guilty pleasure reading is something that we keep inside of us. We keep secret. And I think that a lot of that, at least in my own experience with romance novels, is this idea that women's fiction is less than, somehow, than regular literary fiction. Women's fiction is called women's fiction. There's a name. Or it's called chick lit, which is, of course, the derogatory sort of side of women's fiction, that name. And this idea that if you're reading chick lit, you're probably by the beach. You're probably, you're probably on vacation with your girlfriends and you're drinking a glass of wine and blah, blah, blah. And that's totally okay to do all of those things while you're reading, but you don't have to necessarily be reading chick lit or women's fiction or romance novels, whatever it is. But I think that plays a big part of it. For me personally, a lot of internalized misogyny where I thought that if I admitted that I liked romance writers, it meant that I was like less of a feminist, or it meant that I was stupid or trifling, or what I cared about didn't really matter, and I should be looking to things that mattered, things that were in the literary canon, which, as we know, the literary canon tends to be more male and white than anything else. And so I had internalized all of these things and considered my romance reading to be something that was very shameful and made me less of a smart person, because if it's women's fiction, it means it's less intelligent or less important. Of course, this idea of what's important and what's intelligent is dependent on everybody and everybody's opinions, but I think that played a huge role in it. And guilty pleasures. Guilty pleasures tend to be feminine things, reality television with a female cast, or romance writers, or whatever it is, romantic comedies, girly music, One Direction, which has a largely female fan base. These things tend to be seen as less than. So anyway, those are my sort of rambly thoughts about this. And of course, guilty pleasures are dependent on every person, although I really hate that term and I think it totally sucks. Big shout out at the end of this video. The people who kind of helped me get over my sort of weirdness or shame about reading romance was Rebecca Schinsky and the lovely Amanda Nelson from Book Riot, who were the first women that I ever saw who were smart, amazing feminist ladies who talked about women's fiction and romance with vim and vigor. So all the love to them. Anyway, what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear them. Have a wonderful day. Bye.